Okay, welcome to another Scouching report. Today we are taking a look at Malcolm Spence of the Erie Otters. And if you're unfamiliar, my name is Will. I am the founder of Scouching, where we do these reports. If you are interested in seeing these as soon as they are made, you can definitely go to scouching.ca and consider subscribing, where you access these at any tier as soon as they are up on YouTube. And so today what we're going to do is just take a look at the video that I've pulled of Malcolm Spence over the course of the season and look at some of the data that I have pulled as well, and really break down what it is that he brings to the game and what areas of improvement there might be for Malcolm Spence. So, in a nutshell, who is Malcolm Spence? And for starters, I'm just going to have to admit that Malcolm Spence is pretty low on my list relative to where most people seem to have him. This is a player I've been watching since he was 16 and is a player who just has never really lived up to sort of the hype that I've seen out of him, but there is a certain level of appeal to the style of play that he brings to the game, especially with regards to how projectable he could be as some kind of NHL contributor. Where he plays in a lineup could be very dependent on who he's playing for, who he's playing with, all of these other things, but there is a level of projectability to, but there is a style of play that should lend itself to some kind of gig. And what I mean by that is that Malcolm Spence has a level of obvious competitiveness and energy in his game. He's willing to go into battles along the boards. He's willing to throw his weight around. He's willing to get involved, get greasy, be involved in play, working give and goes, doing the things that need to be done to move the play up the ice. But in my view, he's doing a pretty good job of that in the OHL, which is no joke. But in terms of the context of other high-end players in this year's NHL draft, even going into the middle of the first round, there are things that I think separate them from OHL, WHL competition at their respective levels. And with Spence, I think you see some real moments, some real flashes like what you're seeing on screen right now. But in terms of a full 60-minute effort where you definitely see a consistent, potentially high-end offensive player with some good defensive abilities at the NHL level, there are some question marks there, but he's a strong, powerful, physical, competitive player who gets involved in play more often than I thought coming into the season, and definitely just does a good job chipping in. It's just a matter of what he's going to do in the NHL one day. So let's get right into the video here and break down some individual plays of Malcolm Spence and see what we've got. So we're going to start today looking at the physical side of the game and how he sort of interacts on that side of the game and how it interacts with the rest of his game. And so Malcolm Spence is number 17. He's right here on the forecheck. The puck's just been dumped into Kitchener's zone. And this is a play that I think highlights a lot of good parts of his game, but also maybe some lack of refinements and questionable things that already have popped up. So on this play, he does do the work on the back check there, but he gets this pass, receives it pretty cleanly on the entry, but puts it on net from pretty far out. So to play this clip back again, he's in on the forecheck, and what happens immediately after this is what I mean by players who I think are really good at capitalizing on the mistakes of others, right? Under normal circumstances, this should be pretty textbook for the Kitchener Rangers, right? You've got 89 here on the reception from the goalie, and you've got a man here, you could just turn around and fire it up the boards, and maybe you have an interaction here where you can get the puck, but it's not handled particularly well. Fans on the puck, and there's Spence on the forecheck, and he makes no mistake, tries to cause a turnover here, and manages to gain possession of the puck coming out of the offensive zone here. So he comes back, though, and he just skates directly into one of his own teammates here, and then finds a way around him, I suppose. They keep the puck, get it out of the zone, and Spence, this is something he's done all season long, and we'll see evidence of it as well. He's a winger. He does a good job keeping in space and moving up the ice and keeping himself in a good position to receive pucks. He receives a pass here, and if I see Malcolm Spence as a bit of a complimentary power forward at the NHL level, I don't want him shooting from here, right? This is not where I want a guy like him shooting from pretty much ever. I don't think he's a good enough shooter to really challenge goaltenders from this distance. What I want, as a left-handed shooter especially, cutting inside here and getting to the net and trying to challenge goaltenders. Now, Spence didn't not do this, but the rate at which he was just popping pucks on net from no man's land and just kind of throwing stuff at the net when he's a guy with power and strength and I think confidence that could put him in a better scoring position, that's where I kind of would want him to step up a little bit more, because I think there's more capability there. So if I'm coaching him, that's kind of what I'm motivating him to do. And this to me is a situation where I just go, let's try to make this a no-no in the future. So this is another example of capitalizing on the mistakes of others. So Spence is not on the screen right now, but you'll see when he pops in, Niagara just does not handle the puck very well. You've got four guys here, and the fifth one is behind them all. You should not be losing the puck in this specific scenario, especially when there's nobody here. But they lose it. They don't really handle it super well, but there's Malcolm Spence, right? He just gets right in there, uses intensity, gets in there, and takes advantage of their mistake, and then makes a quick decision, getting the puck right to the guy who was deeper in the offensive zone, and then doing the right thing. He finds himself in open ice here, gets a pass, and almost loses possession of the puck here, but gets a cycle going. So this is a situation where in the offensive zone, Spence got involved and started an offensive zone cycle when this could have been a very easy breakout for the Niagara Ice Dogs here. So again, an opponent makes a mistake. Malcolm Spence is right there taking advantage of the situation, right? So it's obviously not something that I think in the NHL happens as often, but it is something that I think is worthy of noting, is that this is a guy who tries to compete and get involved and challenge guys and capitalize on the mistakes they make. And this is him again, right? He's not necessarily the guy with the puck in this scenario, but he is a good complementary physical player here. He causes a turnover here, really nice stick check along the boards, and gets the puck into open ice to an open man, 33 there. This is a really, really solid play from him. I think this is one where, yeah, he's off the puck here, but he does a good job keeping his eye on the flow of play. 17 on London here, takes way too much time to get around here or make a play with the puck, and there's Spence carving right through them, challenging him below the goal line, and he sticks with him. And then the puck gets chipped up along the boards. And again, he's right there on 47. Quick stick check before he can even touch the puck. And he gets a shot assist here, sending the puck to a line mate. So strong defensive play here in the offensive zone. This is sort of what I mean when I talk about defense in the offensive zone. He's pretty good at that, it seems. And here is almost the exact same thing, right? So the Saginaw Spirit have the possession of the puck in their own end here, number 14. And again, under normal circumstances, this shouldn't be that much of a problem, right? You have this guy flying the zone this way. You have this guy probably flying the zone this way. You might have this guy curling up this way. You have options if you're Saginaw here, but he hangs on to the puck. And again, this is where you kind of don't want to be making mistakes. And what does Malcolm Spence do? He goes, you're going to hang on to the puck this long? Well, I'm going to challenge you about it. Tries to carry it around him, uses his reach, causes the turnover, takes physical contact along the blue line there, and chips it into open ice, and he's got good support here. So good, smart, simple, effective play. But it is something that I've noted about him over the years, over the season, I should say, where he is taking advantage of the mistakes of others a lot. And I wonder how often that happens in the NHL. Guys who make mistakes in the NHL, they don't last very long. It's often a big problem with a lot of skill players. These decisions, they're very, very, very important a lot of the time. And if you make bad ones, guys like Spence will be all over you. So that's why I think he kind of projects okay to the NHL. But in terms of doing stuff like this, and having his opponents do stuff like this, it's kind of feels like something where it's not going to happen as much. This is becoming a bit of a broken record already, but here he goes again, right? First thing I notice on this is that Spence's pace of play here, his skating ability, his speed on the forecheck here is, I would say, questionable, gliding into the offensive zone. But he is hounding this guy below the goal line, and he gets support. And again, an opposing mistake, the guy falls down and he gets himself a shot on net. Is this something that he's going to see in the NHL very often? Maybe. But this is why I see him as a guy who plays like a good middle six forechecker in the NHL, but in the OHL. And my question always is, how does that project to the NHL? I think he could be a role player of some kind, but this is a situation where if you're coaching Oshawa in this situation, is this a situation you're happy with? Is this something you go, well, this is something that just, it happens sometimes, you know? This to me is a mistake on the part of 72, but he does find open space off that turnover and gets himself a shot on net, which is, again, something that Spence has done all season. So now we're going to get into some of his more skating and skill areas of the game, the sort of fun stuff everybody loves. This was a play that I thought was worth noting because I don't note Spence as a particularly high skill first player, but in this situation, he's facing a good forecheck here from 13 on Kitchener, and he just pulls the puck right around him. And this is something that I did find he did pretty well in a lot of the games I watched, where he's a guy who was doing a really, really good job of just marching the play up the ice. He's patient, he sees the ice pretty well, and he makes himself a lane here, right? 13 overcommits on the forecheck, now he's got a ton of room to play with. And he's, if he wants to go on his backhand, he's got a pass option here, but he also has a lane to carry the puck if he wants to. He's got lots of stuff to play with. And he manages to carry the puck through a little gap there on a little chip and chase with himself, and then passes the puck on the offensive entry and goes to the net. Again, simple but effective. And this little skill move here to get out of his own end and maintain control of the puck and move it up the ice, it's good stuff. I just always worry about the projection of a play like this, at the NHL level. This is a play where I see why Malcolm Spence is so projectable to me to the NHL as like at least something, because he's going to go into the boards here and just fend off pressure from 47 really well. I believe that's Blake Montgomery, who is not a small player whatsoever, a pretty heavy and intense player, and he manages to just protect the puck really well. And this is when NHL scouts get really interested in a player, especially past the first few picks of the draft. Obviously that pass doesn't connect, but that's not really the focus of the play. For me, it's about using his body to protect the puck here and spinning off of pressure and working off of contact, because there's no lack of contact in the NHL, and if you can use your natural abilities to avoid that contact or play off of it and make a play, that's really, really helpful. So for Spence to have a decent amount of size and a decent amount of skill and a decent amount of ability to stay calm under these situations and resist that pressure, I think bodes well for some kind of NHL job at the end of the day. This is a part of the game where I wonder about the projectability in terms of being a real difference maker in the NHL, right? So on this play, you have Spence far side here. This is almost a goal. You know, this could very easily have just not been deflected, landed on his stick, and it's a goal. But it goes behind him. He goes and gets it. And he does a thing that I always get terrified of, which is carry the puck out to the blue line himself and try to wheel around the perimeter all the way on his own. And he loses possession of the puck. To me, this is a thing where this very easily could have been an odd man rush coming the other way, when in reality, right here is kind of where I'd go. This is where you reverse it, right? You've got the puck along the half wall. This is maybe an option, but you've got this guy right here ready to challenge that. I'd reverse it down the boards and ship it to Misiak here, number 90, down low, and see if there's an opportunity. And if he misses the puck or something, you've got support below the goal line. So carrying it out here, this very easily could have just been a turnover, and you've got this guy here ready to go up the ice, and it could have been an odd man rush coming the other way. But he manages to keep possession of it and flips it over 24 and keeps it down low. So in this specific situation, it worked. And it is notable for me that as a puck protector, using his body, protecting the puck, it's good, but this is the kind of thing where I'm going, I might tweak things a little bit and try to minimize situations like this because it's a bit hair-raising. So here's another one where I look at Spence and I go, this is a powerful skater. He's getting up the ice pretty well, but he wasn't really a standout in this area in terms of speed and projectable sort of high-end ability. He's getting up the ice pretty good here, but again, this is a situation where I want him cutting to the net. He needs to have the power and or speed to drive the net here, especially if he's going to keep the puck on his backhand and try to get something greasy from in front, but he loses the handle there, tries a little soft backhand shot pass thing there. I'm not sure what it is, but he doesn't really get there. And it's a bit of a soft attempt on net, or a soft directed attempt, I guess, whatever you want to call it. So to me, this is another thing where it's, you know, you're a power forward. He is quite old for this draft class. He's almost eligible for last year's draft. And so again, there's just a lot of murkiness with regards to exactly where he's going to end up in the NHL. But I'm seeing plenty here where there's something, right? There's some kind of NHL something here in terms of a physical complementary guy. And this is another play here, right? So he's getting up the ice pretty decently well. You know, he's not slow at all. He gets into the offensive zone, and again, this is not where you're going to score from, right? This is just not going to happen, and especially on your offside. He's shooting left, he's down the right wing. This is where you kind of need a dump and chase kind of vibe, or chip and chase, whatever you want to call it, and get down low a little bit, because a shot from here, you know, let's say this goes here, right? It's going to bounce off the boards, and what's going to happen? You're going to have these guys right there ready to pick it up and come the other way. So to me, I really want to minimize these types of things, and that's exactly what happens. Actually, the puck ends up with this guy, and now the London Knights are 4 guys in and they're off, right? So that's where you always sort of lose me a little bit if you want to be that sort of offensive leaning guy and a power forward. So this is one where it almost doesn't really work out for him, but you see sort of a level of confidence with his skill to apply it on exits, especially here. So he's getting the puck along the half wall here in his own end, gets up the ice and just gets right through number 42 there with some skill, and then as soon as he faces a stick check, dishes the puck away and then goes to the net. This is the kind of thing that I think will get him an NHL gig and keep it. Just, you know, yes, the skill level here might need a bit of refinement. He almost turned it over on the exit there, but the idea is there. So popping it through the stick and the feet there, getting up the ice, and then dishing it away, going to the net, and keeping it simple. Like, these are the kinds of things that I'm always really, really interested with players like Spence, and why I think, while I'm not as high on him as others, I see why a team would value him and find a role for him in the NHL somewhere in a lineup. And this is more of what I want as well, right? So it's not like he's never going to the net. You'll see Spence here on the exit. Again, he's got possession of the puck. He's coming out of his own end. He's going into the offensive zone. And he doesn't just stop up and pass or shoot here, right? This isn't just the only thing he's doing in his game. I don't want to come off that way. But this is video where I'd look at him and I'd go, go, this is what I want. This is what will get you an NHL gig, right? You get up the ice and you get deep in the offensive zone. And if you need to chip it along the boards, great. But if you can get it in front and give it to a line mate right there in front of the net, that's a scoring chance, right? That's a really good scoring chance. Much, much better than putting it on net from above the faceoff circle. So this is one where I would positively feedback and go, let's work on making this happen more often, right? Find some way to do it. So this clip is very interesting to me because it showcases a lot of really good talent for Spence, but depending on who you ask, whether you're a commenter of this video, a watcher, or an NHL person, you might take this kind of thing multiple different ways, because I'll just let it play. He's a guy who gets the possession here on the puck. He's in support. He gets it below the goal line, and he just goes for a skate, right? This is one of the most interesting sequences I saw out of him in terms of showcasing talent, but in terms of playing the game as an NHL player, when is this something that happens? Right? But it showcases some really good ability. He's really hanging on to the puck for a really long time on this possession. He's carrying it out to the blue line again. He's trying to cut through two players at once, and it works. You know, he gets away with it there, but again, if that's a turnover, that's a bad spot to turn the puck over, but he gets the puck right back because he's got good momentum, and then works a really beautiful give and go here, right? So he gets the puck behind the back pass to this guy, and then he's just going to fill the space that is created when London splits up here. This guy kind of falls asleep in the middle of the ice, creates a gap, and Spence gets himself a shot on net. So not bad. You know, this is a clip where I'm curious of what people's thoughts are. It's really good puck protection and patience and confidence. But again, like, I'm thinking about the NHL, and the fact that he's capable of stuff like this is good to note, for sure. But his best moments for me were when he's wired to do things like this. And so it's going to be a matter of like finding that balance, which is going to be very, very interesting to see in the future based on how he plays. Here he goes again, right? This is Spence doing similar things, but on a shorter sequence. So he gets the possession of the puck below the goal line here, goes for a little skate, again, bringing it all the way out to the blue line, but does so in order to get a puck to this guy here along the blue line. And then what does he do? He does the right thing. It's a give and go, cuts inside. Now he has an inside lane on Will Nickel here, 73 on London. Gets inside and gets himself an opportunity to take a shot on net. Doesn't really get it off entirely, but again, the sequence here is intriguing. He's a guy who can protect the puck. He does kind of the things you need him to do. He works these give and goes really well. He can cut to the net and find routes. So this is what I want to see more of him. But again, it's that choosing your moments, you know, taking on a bit of risk and when to do it. That is the thing that I am a little hung up on with him. And we'll get to more about that later in the video. I highlighted this because it's just a beautiful pass from Spence here that I just wanted to show people. So Spence just knocks this puck down on the entry here, gets possession of it, and takes a split second to wait, right? You know, he could just sauce this in here right away and just get rid of the puck, but he waits, and then very nearly a tape-to-tape pass to number 9 there. Really, really nice play. Didn't work out, but it's a moment of vision and that patience that we've seen out of him, that hockey sense to wait for the lane to really be open and wait that split second to make something happen. That's always something that I'm looking for. So they score on this play. Spence, again, he's got a lane to the net here, so he can just do that if he needs to. The puck comes free, but he decides to cut away. He's facing pressure from 42 in front, so this makes sense. But then a really, really nice pass off the boards here. Does not hesitate. Clean tape to tape. Clear passing lane, spots it quickly and gets rid of it. That's good stuff. You want to see that out of a player, and 86 makes no mistake, and they've got themselves a goal. Another really, really nice passing play here from Spence. He gets a couple on this opportunity, so he's this guy here with possession of the puck. This little shake and shimmy, you know, can do a lot of damage. It's a really, really clever little move there. We'll wait for it to wrap around again, but he gets another really nice pass off the boards. Again, quick thinking, really good structure, good support. You've got your sort of triangle here. This guy obviously isn't an option because he's flat on the ice, but getting the puck in front, getting a shot on net, like these are the things that Spence does. But as we'll see in the data and we'll see later in the video, it's just a matter of the consistency with which this happens and the dependability and the reliability of the plays that he's making. But the fact that he's capable of things like this are all really, really impressive. And this sort of little fake on the entry here, just the boop and the pass across the seam there is good to see. Those are good traits to have, and he's done that a few times. I highlighted this because I can just hear NHL scouts and NHL coaches and NHL GMs just drooling watching this. Nothing happens, right? Spence just is in open ice. Erie has a breakaway. Spence doesn't do anything here. But watch what he does. he gets right in the face of the goaltender, and he's doing the Radko Gudas, scream in his face, makes him mad, and antagonizes. So he's done this before too, right? Like, he's a guy who really likes to mix things up from time to time, and he's a competitor. This is why I highlighted his competitiveness right from the get-go, because I've seen stuff like this, just jawing at goaltenders, rubbing it in a little bit. You know, it's a 5-1 goal, so take that for what you will. You know, there might be coaches out there who are like, why are you gloating when you're up 5-1 halfway through the game? Like, clearly you're going to win. What are you doing? But I don't know. It's kind of neat, if you ask me, so thought it was fun to note. So we're going to get into the sort of thinking aspect of the game with Spence and sort of the approach that he has. We got into it a little bit on that last clip there, but this is more of a serious look at it. So here's Spence on the defensive entry here. This is just highlighting that he is a player capable of sort of doing good defensive coverages. He's not a lazy player. He sticks with this pressure. You know, maybe 73 can sneak a pass around him here. He may be a step behind, but he sticks with it. I mean, that is what happens. So, you know, maybe not the best execution, but the fact that Spence is willing to cover those defensive minutes and get involved and try to stop these plays, even if he is a step behind here or there, it's something you can develop and work on and at least have a good foundation. Again, here's another one. We kind of talked about this earlier in the video, so I'm going to be really fast on this one. But if you're Niagara, this is not a situation that should lead to a turnover, right? You've got D to D. You just can't be turning the puck over when you have a situation like this, right? You've just gained possession of the puck. You're, I guess, doing the right thing there by sort of deceiving and skating around a little bit. But, you know, Malcolm Spence is not coming up with possession on this play, but he sticks with it. He challenges you. He forces you to make mistakes if you kind of fall asleep around him a little bit. This obviously doesn't turn into anything for Erie, but it's another instance of Spence just being annoying, being a competitive guy who will challenge you, and a guy where you can't dilly-dally when you're on the ice with him. You can't dawdle, as my parents would say. Now, some might say that this is a play that you might not want to make all the time, but it is a really nice tape-to-tape pass off the boards here. You know, in this situation, I guess there are coaches in the NHL who are going to go, don't take any risks and just fire this down low and hope that someone's there to chase after it. But he turns this into a very clean pass to this guy somehow, right? And how does he do it? He spins off the pressure and fires it in there. Now, watching this back again, at this current moment, I'm sitting here going, boy, this could have been a disaster. You know, this spin pass off. If 92 were closer to 90 here, they could be off, right? You've got guys here and here. You know, it might not have been the best option, but it worked, right? Like, it's a tape-to-tape pass, and it worked in this instance. So just that ability to make those quick decisions, you know, use his skating and his skill to do some of this more high-end stuff is definitely on display. The value of this specific play, I think, you know, depends on who you ask, but could be questionable. This is a nice sort of give and go kind of moment that Spence is going to have to do in the NHL, I think, at the end of the day. Just no nonsense. You've got room here. He's going to hit 33 with a pass on the exit here, but this is a situation where you're just not going to win if you try to carry the puck this way and you're facing forechecking pressure. Just making a good, solid read. Obviously, it's not handled perfectly and it's not a pinpoint pass, but these are the types of plays that I think they're boring, but they're definitely going to need to be things that for Spence to be a consistent role player in the NHL, he's going to need to do a lot of, and the fact that he's trying this in a number of occasions is at least a step in the right direction. This is another strong pass that he takes coming off the boards here, so he's just a good puck supportive position here. He gets possession of the puck in this specific area, cuts right to the net, and this is just really nice lane awareness, right? This guy was not on the screen this whole shift, or this whole sequence, I should say, and it's not handled very well by 23, but the idea is what matters, right? So Spence is not a player who is always taking too long to make decisions, but this is a guy who does have the capability to make quick strike, easy decisions that are sort of a good mix of high end and just solid plays. All right, so now we're going to get into some potential areas of improvement. And I'm going to preface this. There are quite a few clips that I've pulled that I have labeled that are less than ideal, I would say. And a lot of it revolves around actually being a high-end version of what he does in the NHL, rather than just being a very good version of what he does in the OHL and maybe the AHL in the future, right? That's been my concern with Spence all year long, and we'll see in these clips where, yes, he's a competitive player, he's a physical player, he's intense, but the results are often not there. Yeah, yes, he's a player who can make quick decisions, has a bit of skill, and has these little high-end moments here and there, but on the whole, it's about the balance between the things that work and the things that don't, and the turnovers and the possessions and all of these things that can interact with each other and give you a good picture of what the player is. Now, again, I'm not saying that I'm not a fan of this player at all. I like Malcolm Spence. I could easily see an NHL career for him, but I just wanted to preface this section by just saying, like, this is about identifying areas of improvement and some inconsistencies and some things that you do kind of have to be aware of when you're drafting players, right? So let's dig into it. It's mostly, again, around these physical moments or these abilities to turn turnovers into something, like on this play right here, right? So Spence is on the forecheck, I suppose. He's doing his neutral zone coverages here. Doesn't really finish a check here and is a bit of a weak stick check. And then he loses the man on the rush here and is basically left behind. Sam Dickinson just leaves him behind, tries to give him a tap on the numbers with his stick, and Sam Dickinson's in there for a good scoring chance. So this is number one, and it's just a sign or a sign of things that I've seen in his game where I go, okay, this is a competitive, intense guy, but sometimes you see it disappear a little bit, and even there in the defensive zone, he's a little soft on his coverage. This one, again, it's a sequence of things that don't go his way, right? So here he's just a step behind anyway, right? To start this, he's a step behind, doesn't really close that gap. Again, he's still not really challenging the guy after a few strides, and the pass just goes straight through him, and then he's back on the defensive entry here, again, trying to challenge the entry. Stick check, doesn't do anything. He tries, he's again step behind. He's, I think, risking a slashing or hooking penalty there, and then on the entry below the goal line there, the guy just spins right off of both of those players' pressure, right? So Spence just skates right by, doesn't really help pin number two to the boards and cause the turnover here. So for me, this is a thing where I'm going, again, I want players that come as advertised, and there is a side of his game that is very positive, but there is also a lot of things that just do not go his way, and we'll see again in the data eventually in this video exactly the evidence, like the numbers evidence of what I'm talking about as well, because this is not the first time and only time something like this happened where there were multiple instances of just play bleeding through him, right? And just not really finishing those plays along the boards. Here's another one where it's just multiple instances where I'm wondering where his head is at on this play and what's really going on, right? So Spence is a left winger, so his zone of coverage is kind of this area of the ice, and he kind of drifts really far onto the right wing, and now you've got an enormous gap with three Rangers players potentially being able to work off of this. And not only that, but Spence kind of tries to get back, and he picks up number 57 here, but doesn't really do much once number 24 gets possession of the puck. It's a bit of a soft stick check. Puck goes into the corner, and Spence just sticks with his man, right? If it's me, I want him, you're a physical guy. Get in there. Attack the guy. You don't have any support. All four teammates of yours are crowded in front of the net with nobody else around them, and it just creates this really extended offensive zone cycle that gets pucks into the slot and all these things. So again, it's a matter of awareness and being really, truly impactful defensively and causing turnovers and all of these things. This is where I kind of feel like Spence was really inconsistent, and for his style of play, I don't think inconsistency is really a thing that is that tolerable. So this is another instance where Spence doesn't get the advantage of the opposing team making a mistake, but he almost does, right? So here's Spence doing his thing. He's in on the forecheck. Oshawa, again, this is not a situation where you should be turning over the puck, right? You've got all the options in the world to diffuse this pressure. 15 just waits and waits and waits, and very nearly causes a turnover deep in his own end, but gets a pass off just in time, and then Spence does the right thing, chases that pass down, but doesn't really factor in. That guy plays off of Spence's forecheck really, really well. So again, Spence is in on the forecheck, but this is when I look at him and I go, right, but when the competition level increases and guys are making less and less mistakes, players are thinking quicker, where's he going to be on those plays? What's the situation going to be like for him? And in this situation, I guess it's, as a coach, you kind of get him to be more physical, right? Pin this guy to the boards. Don't overskate the puck, really get in there. But on this play, he did not, and it wasn't the only one again. So this is another one, right? So this is against the same player too, by the way. I believe the last one was Ben Danford along the corner in his own end, but here's Spence doing his thing. This is what you need to do, left wing covering this area of the ice. The puck comes along the boards, and again, he's not really driving himself into the boards very hard, and Ben Danford, God love him, he just gets right into him, beats him to the puck, kicks it down into the corner, and then Spence falls down and hits his face on something. But at the end of the day, this is a play where I'm going, if I have this guy on my third line, but this is the tape that I'm working with, there's work to do, right? Like, this is just not where you want a player like him to be a lot of the time. So I don't know. It's stuff where I think you can deal with it and fix it, and I think that the mentality is there. But at the end of the day, yeah, like Ben Danford had it way too easy on that play, in my opinion. So Simon Wang, who is a big, rangy, decently skilled defenseman here, number 7 for the Oshawa Generals, gets the puck down low here, and this is where I feel like NHL defensemen might have it a little easier with a guy like Spence coming out of their own end, right? So Wang, not saying he's a super high-end NHL player, but the skill to cross him up there and get Spence to sort of overcommit, that's the type of thing that NHL defensemen do on breakouts all the time. They just make quick cuts, quick little skill moves, and try to throw forecheckers off that way. And again, we're not talking about Malcolm Spence being in the NHL next year, so it's not that he's never going to make it. It's just a matter of finding things to work on and things to refine and things to really sort of think about and plan for in the future, because stuff like this, again, if Spence is getting his best moments off of opposing team mistakes, and when the team is not making mistakes and doing the right moves, that's when things kind of get a little bit murkier. That's when I'm a little bit more doubtful. And this is another one, right? I always make note of players who are talked about as power forwards, as guys who you want to battle and grind and do all those things. I always make note of players who are advertised that way, but lose battles that they should be winning, right? Like, this is a situation where Spence borderline should be taking a holding penalty right there, right? Like, and he still doesn't come up with possession of the puck, right? To me, I look at this and I go, right, against stronger competition, against better players, the London Knights are no joke. They just won the OHL championship last night, and Malcolm Spence there, I've seen him resort to almost slashing hands, hooking from behind, not being content to stick with play, and here he holds a guy and he still loses the physical battle and they still maintain possession in the offensive zone. So to me, these things are all together make it really murky to really see exactly what his role in the NHL will be. So here's another one. So Spence is gonna do what he does on this defensive entry, right? Beckett Seneca is no joke. He's a good player. Top 3 draft pick, good player. Spence is in on the back check in his own end, loses on the stick check. Seneca just powers straight through him, and that's not the biggest issue on this play. To me, it's this puck getting out into the corner, and I at least want Malcolm Spence to eat the puck in the corner here, or get to it first and chip it this way, something, right? But 42 just pushes him right out of the way and gets there. And then Spence does end up pinning him to the boards there, but now Oshawa has possession in Erie's end. So it's about, like, hockey is a game of bounces and results and winning battles. And I remember more often than not watching Malcolm Spence go into battles and all of these things and going, yeah, you didn't come out with possession. They managed to get possession of the puck here, and now you're on your back foot trying to catch up. So this is earlier in the year, I think, but still, it was a bit of a pattern that I remember from over the course of my viewings all year. This one, I don't think the whole first half of this play can be blamed on him. He's the third man back. You've got 2 defensemen here. That does not get played very well along the boards here. But my issue is Spence here, right? You've got Sam O'Reilly coming in, and you're the third guy, right? You've got 2-on-2 here, a mini 2-on-2, and 37 is already fallen behind. This needs to be your guy. Him getting a chance in front off a rebound or something is a non-option to me. And still, you've let Sam O'Reilly get right into the slot here, just uncontested, and then you give him a little shot in the back, and then he gets his stick on the puck and it's in the back of the net, right? This was a playoff game. And so for me, and this was also an overtime winner, and so it's like, okay, I see the competitiveness with this guy. I see the forechecking ability. I see the energy in his game, but what are we doing, right? Are we NHL scouts here because we're looking at guys who can compete and win in the playoffs? Well, here he is in the second round of the playoffs getting scored on in an overtime game, and on the back check just kind of falls asleep a little bit and loses track of a guy who ends up scoring the goal and gives him a cross check. Sure, say what you will about that, but still, it's the results are the results, and things like this matter, at least in my books, right? This is one of a couple of examples of something I noted with Malcolm Spence that I don't want to dwell too much on because it wasn't as much of an issue as the previous stuff we went over. But I do want to note that Spence is a guy who I think once the puck is on his stick is much more dependable than when he is receiving passes. And I think this is something you can develop. Obviously, this sort of puck touch ability and this ability to settle the puck. I mean, that's not a great pass, but you're not going to get good passes every time in the NHL. Now, he sticks with it, gets into the offensive zone and makes a play of some kind, and they try to get a cycle going in the offensive zone. But more about the finesse ability for Spence, I think, is going to be an area to work on from here. Not saying it's bad or anything. It's just a matter of these moments. If he shores it up and makes it a little bit better, there's a couple examples here that I think it would just help him a lot with regards to the way he plays naturally. Quick puck touches, good vision, quick decisions, all these things. It's a lot easier when you have a really good ability to settle pucks and take bad passes better and all these things. So this might be something I'd work on as well. Here's another sequence here where Spence is trying to showcase a level of skill that I'm just not sure is projectable to the NHL. Trying to pull around these other players on the opposing team. He does get the job done here in this sequence, and that's very nice to see, right? He's a player that I think uses his feet and a certain level of skill to evade pressure pretty well. But again, most possessions in the NHL are pretty quick. And so for me, I'd like to see higher up in the offensive zone, just a little bit more either skill level to make that work or urgency to make a play a little bit quicker or get the puck down low or something like that. So it's a matter of what he wants to be in the NHL, because I do think there is a pathway forward for him to be something there. I'm just not sure exactly what based on how he is right now. And so this is another one of those examples I was talking about where that puck settling ability that can really be a huge difference maker. You know, if he manages to get this puck clean on his stick and he manages to get a clean carry out of this, he's got tons of space to play with, right? This is a great situation for him to have possession of the puck and read the ice and whatever, but he kind of lets it bounce right off his stick and handling it on the entry, but then the behind the back pass, and then you're off and running in the offensive zone. So it's not all bad, right? It's just a matter of, you know, valuing this player in the draft. Where are you going to draft him? What's he worth? And what are you passing on, right? And I see a lot of other players in this draft with a little bit more finesse, a little bit more skill, a little bit more pace in their game, but they just might not have that competitive streak in them that I think you see Spence at least want to play with a lot of the time. Here's another one, right? I'm not going to dwell on this one too long because I don't want to beat a dead horse, but on this exit, again, you've got the time and space. At this point, I'd probably want him dishing the puck, right? You've got Panofimis on the exit here, pretty clean. Tries to hang on to it, and a weak shovel pass into the neutral zone there. And then he does get possession of the puck back in the offensive zone, though, and gets something going. It's just a matter of cleaning this up a little bit, because again, he doesn't really have that evasive speed or resilience or skill to get through that play, but he sticks with it, and they manage to get something out of it in the offensive zone. Better than nothing. Okay, and that is it for Malcolm Spence. And so look, I'm going to be pretty clear. I am a fan of this player and what he could be, but at the end of the day, as with almost every player, it really depends on where you're drafting him in the NHL draft to see where you're getting good value. And for me, Spence is part of a really solid and interesting class of guys like him. Physical, pretty competitive. You see a good streak of potential NHL ability somewhere in a lineup here. He's got a bit of skill to him. He's got a bit of skating ability to him. He's got a bit of resilience. He's got a bit of this pass vision, this quick strike offense. He's got a pretty decent shot that you see from mid-range, especially pretty often. There's a lot to like about Malcolm Spence, but in terms of really seeing an NHL player against NHL competition, what is he going to do? And my answer to that question is, I mean, it's going to really depend on how well he develops from here. Does he get a step or two quicker? The quicker he's going to get, the better off he's going to be. You know, is he going to be a step behind on those defensive instances at the NHL level? That's something I would really work on. Getting stronger, you know, pinning guys against the boards, taking that extra step in your own end to close out those plays along the boards, you know, do the things that are just that extra little bit in order to complete the play that is ideal. I think that at the end of the day, though, he's a player that has good instincts. I think he has a good approach to the game that I think is a good foundation in which to build on. So for me, I mean, it's really hard to give a good valuation. He's flown all over my list over the course of the season, and I'm not sure he's a player that I think I would draft really, really high, but if he's available somewhere in the late first round, we just did a video on Shane Van Saggy. I think I go with a Van Saggy over a Malcolm Spence, but it wouldn't take much longer for me to think about a Malcolm Spence really seriously. I think there might be other players that bring a little bit more upside, a little more finesse, a little bit more flash and razzle dazzle, but maybe not as much of a just good sound hockey player that you can build on. One thing that works out a bit in his advantage, though, in this day and age, is that he's going to go straight to the NCAA next year, which is, I think, where he should go. I think he's going to be a good college player. I think he's going to fit right in Michigan. I think it'll be really telling, especially how he plays, how it projects to more older and more advanced players out there, because I think there are a lot of holes in his game that I think either will get exposed in the NCAA and worked on, or he'll work on it over the summer and come back a pretty good power forward in the college game next year. So it's a matter of uncertainty with him for me. I just don't really know where he's going to end up on a draft board or where he's going to end up on an NHL team's depth chart. Like, could he be a complimentary power forward first line guy in the NHL? Maybe at his best with the right coaches and really good line mates, maybe. But as a third line guy who can kill penalties, maybe, who can muck it up in front of the net, has a good personality that you can really just lean on and be a good teammate with, maybe there's something there, and I think that there's lots to like about him. Analytically speaking, his profile is okay, I would say. Again, the reason I'm a little more limited on its offensive upside, his offensive threat metric is below what I would consider to be high-end offensive talent in the OHL, WHL. An offensive threat metric of 18 is not amazing, especially when there are guys who are pushing 30 out there in the CHL. Pass attempts are low, but he's a guy who does shoot the puck a lot. 30% of the shots that come from Erie when he's on the ice are off of his stick. He's generating 49% of their offense. He is losing the possession battle, and in every game as the season wore on this year, those metrics got worse in every game I did. That might just be selection bias, but it did feel like he was getting exposed a little bit more, getting more mistakes that he could take advantage of earlier in the games that I saw earlier in the year. But as the year wore on and in the playoff games that I watched and tracked, he just felt like it was the gaps were exposed a little bit more than I would have liked. In terms of transition results, it's fine, I would say. Like the rest of his profile, I would categorize it as fine. He's a guy who's pretty efficient offensively. He's pretty heavily involved, but much more of a pass first and, hit me with a pass in the neutral zone type player. That's kind of his bread and butter, and I think that's kind of where he's going to stay. I don't know about his puck carrying ability. It's okay, but I wouldn't project it to super high NHL levels right now as it is. But the defensive numbers, the DTS percentage, which is defensive transition success, is not great with him. Wingers, he's going to be involved quite a bit on those transitions across blue lines defensively. More than half, he's relinquishing control on them. And stick checks, he's not very successful on. And I think that's because he doesn't really have that quickness and that real ability to defend with his feet as much as I like players to defend with their feet. He's a step behind, and that can make it really, really hard to be a defensively impactful player. It can cause a lot of penalties as well. There were quite a few plays here where he's losing guys he's got a mark on, but he's slashing at their hands. He's kind of hooking at their armpits. One was holding a guy against the boards. There's just a lot where I'm going, I wonder if this guy is going to take a lot of penalties because he's just not always where he needs to be. But again, development is development, right? I'm not saying he can't get better. He will. It's just going to be a matter of, are you drafting this guy 10th overall? Are you drafting this guy 12th? Are you drafting him 20th? Are you drafting him 30th? For me, in the later 20s, that's when it starts to become interesting to me, where I go, yep, he's a bit of a development case, but there's a really strong foundation to build on here. There's a lot to work with. Maybe in the earlier 20s, I could go, okay, if this guy interviews really, really well, coaches love him, everybody loves him, and he'll be something for us, then sure, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think in recent months, I may have overcorrected with where I have him on my list, but I do feel like, people have sort of waned a little bit on him. He's kind of fallen by the wayside in the minds of a lot of scouts, and I think there's reason for that, and I think there is cause for a little bit of pause in terms of what an NHL role would look like for him, but at the end of the day, he's wired the right way. I think he's got good stuff in a lot of areas of the game that you can project forward. And from there, it'll be a matter of time, development, and patience. So with that, we're going to call it. Thank you very much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. And if you really liked it, definitely like and subscribe to the channel. You'll never miss another one. If you want these as soon as possible, as well as access to our Discord server and plenty of other cool little goodies like our data tables and visualization tools, head over to scouching.ca where you'll get access to those tools at a variety of our tiers, where all the tiers will gain you access to these videos as early as possible. So check that out. The links are in the description, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much.